What's going on, everybody out there? Welcome back to the Rue Morgue 200 Challenge. Episode 5 is coming at you live. I am one half of your host. I don't know what I was going to say there. I am the toxic offender, and of course I have my brother from another mother, the Mexicant, Double Shot J, also known as JP, in the house. What's going on, brother?
Yo.
Yeah.
For the 200 challenge, I think we're like 2.5% of the way done.
Yes, episode 5. It's actually hard to believe that there's still like 195 episodes to go. It's
funny. It's funny.
Right. We'll make that joke every single time. And it'll become real. I think once we get into the like over 100, then it'll be like, okay, we're on the home stretch.
Yeah. Once you hit that peak point and you're down the other half of the mountain, that's where I'll be like, yo, we're getting there. I actually wanted to take a look. I haven't looked at the list, but I was wondering how many films from 1980 were on there. As you know, we drew 1980 for the next year. I know Alligator's on there. That's one off the head.
You know what? But I actually didn't even cross-reference. I know there is definitely Alligator. Man, I don't know. I'd have to do a quick little cross-reference, but I'm sure there is more than one. There's got to be.
There has to be.
1980 is just an overly exceptional year. It's like ridiculous, man. When you break it down, man, like even prepping, doing 150 watches seems like you're under prepping. Like it's just nuts. Like it's such a great year. So I'm sure that there's more 80 films on the 200 challenge.
I put 70 on the list of just like, okay, I'm going to start with these 70.
Yeah.
And I was still getting to movies that I was familiar with, you know what I mean? Like that I like. So it was like, wow, this year really is a lot of depth.
Oh, it really is crazy, man. It is crazy. That's going to be, it makes for an exciting prep for the summer. You know, I mean, I'm not 100% sure when we're going to actually do the show, just based on, because there is going to be a lot of prep, a lot of watches and stuff. But I mean, we still have the 41 show, which is actually really funny because it's like the polar opposite of 1980. Not in terms of quality. There is some quality films from 41, but there's just nothing to watch.
There's like 12 movies.
Right. 41 was a very, very slow year. And I'm probably assuming that probably had something to do with the war at the time. I'm assuming, because if you only produce like 12 movies in 1941, like you were in the middle, like World War II started in 39, 41, not really back into the full-fledged of things. So I don't know. I know The Wolfman came out in 41, which is, very, very classic. So
classic.
Yeah. Good hair in my mouth. But yeah, so if people don't follow the podcast, they have no idea what we're talking about right now whatsoever.
Right, yeah. If this was their first video, this series is like their first introduction to us, they're gonna be like, "What the hell are these guys talking about?"
Right. We do these random years top 10 shows on the podcast, and 1980 and 1941 were drawn next. So, anyways, long story short, those are the next lists that we're gonna be doing. 80 is just a big prep year. It's kind of like doing this, but we don't have a time limit on this. Like we can just keep doing this for a while. So, but yeah, we'll definitely have to cross-reference that for 1980s. I'm pretty sure that there's more than one. But it's funny because I just rewatched Alligator, right? I just watched it. So I usually make a rule, like when we draw the next year, if I've watched any of the movies within the last like month, I'll put them on as I've already watched them. And I'd watched 4 1980 movies in the last 4 weeks prior to us drawing 1980. I was like, are you kidding me?
I had watched 3 in the last week before we drew it.
Right.
Because I went to that drive-in and they showed 3 movies from 1980.
Right.
On the big screen. So Terror Train, Dr. Butcher, MD, and I forget what the other one was. But it was also the same thing. So it was just very weird that I had seen 3 movies like the week that we drew it.
That is really, really bizarre, actually. Because I just got Alligator. I wanted to check out the 4K, so I popped that in. And then, of course, I just got Night of the Demon from Severance, so I wanted to rewatch that. And I was like, you got to do it. So, and of course, I was watching Mr. Parker's secret top 10, and they were talking about Don't Answer the Phone. I was like, you know what, man? I just really want to rewatch that right now. Got the influence, and then, of course, watched it, and then 80 pops up. So
That's awesome.
It's just funny how that works, man. It's really funny. But
Yeah,
I've been
it's
going.
gonna be a fun year. It's gonna be fun.
I've been going ape though, man. I'm like already 20 watches in. I
saw that.
It's kind of not really cheating, but the Hammer House of Horrors, House of Horror, House of Horror.
Hammer's House of Horror.
Yeah, so they did. It was like a TV series that obviously came out in 1980, and basically was 13 1-hour long episodes. So basically like short films. And I've watched like 8 of those, so that plays into it too. So, which is pretty solid.
Are those pretty good?
Yeah, they're actually all pretty solid, man. Like, there's like a common theme in those episodes, which is really bizarre because they were like made for television. And there's a lot, every episode has like some types of animals getting killed in it. It's just really bizarre. I'm like, those British, man, they just don't like their animals or something. It's kind of crazy, but it's just kind of funny. I mean, the stories are, some are better than others and stuff, but they're all pretty decent. Like, they're decent to watch. So
yeah, I'm probably gonna watch those as well. Like they did Masters of Horror in 2005.
Right. And it's funny too, because when David made that master list, I was like, what's that Hammer House? And he's like, oh, it's that TV. I was like, oh shit, I had bought that set like 7, 8, 9 years ago. Never watched them. Actually forgot I had it because it doesn't sit in my, it sits in my TV collection. And I don't really watch a lot. Like, it just kind of sits there, and I forgot I even owned it. I pull it out, and I was like, shit, bam, sweet. Get a reason to watch these. And yeah, it was weird. That was a weird thing. I'm like, awesome. All right. So anyways, we should probably digress from that. 22 shots of tangents and horror as usual.
Of course.
All right. So we are here, episode 5. We drew, what's funny? Every time I look at the year on this film, it's from 2010. And for some odd reason, I think it's older. I always think it's like 2007, like it's been around longer. And I don't think I watched this movie until like 11 or 12. So I only saw this movie maybe 10 years ago. And it is Kim Jee-woon's I Saw the Devil. Yeah,
one of the later films on this Rue Morgue challenge. Because didn't they take 2012 and below?
Yeah. So the Rue Morgue 200 challenge magazine came out in 2012. So yeah, this is one of the newest films. I think there may have been a 2012 film in there too, or something. I don't know, but this is definitely one of the newest ones at that point.
Yeah,
that magazine came out.
This film didn't even premiere until 2011 in the States,
right?
Where it was at Sundance in 2011,
right? And it's funny because the Blu-ray actually says it came out in 2011. I just recently copped this. I've had the DVD forever, and I never upgraded the Blu-ray until this is my first time watching it in high def, and I've seen this movie probably 3 or 4 times. I think I watched my DVD. Well, because we'd actually reviewed this on the podcast. I want to say recently, but it probably wasn't recent.
It was like 2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago. So I'd watched my DVD then. I'd bought the DVD, and so I'd watch it maybe 2 or 3 times, and I finally watched it in high def. And I always thought that this movie looked a little gritty because of the non-high def version I was watching on DVD, right? So then watching this Blu-ray, I was like, holy fuck, man. Like, this is a pretty solid transfer by Magnet here. Like, it really was popping. I just remembered it being gritty, and I was like, no, the transfer on here just changes everything. It's just crystal clear and shit. So, but Kim Jee-woon, man, oh, dude, what a director he is, man. He has done some classic movies, man. Like, modern kind of classic stuff. But A Tale of Two Sisters, which I believe Arrow actually just put out a Blu-ray of that, which is kind of cool. That got some love, but that's a really good movie. This is a really confusing thing for a lot of people. I've tried to explain this to people. I'm not really too sure why it's like this, but he did a segment called Memories in 3 Extremes 2. And
which is 3 Extremes 1.
Which is actually the first one. And then 3 Extremes that most people are familiar with, that came out in 2004. 3 Extremes 2 came out in 2002. 3 Extremes came out in 2004. And that's the one that most people are familiar with dumplings. It's got the famous short and long. If you have the double disc version, you can actually get the long version of dumplings, which is really fucking nasty. It's a nasty short, and it's got the box and another one in there. But yeah, so he did Memories, which is an interesting short in 3 Extremes 2. Have you ever seen it before?
I can't remember. I think which year did 3 Extremes 2 come out?
2002.
Okay, so yeah, I watched 3 Extremes 2. I've never seen 3 Extremes 1, which is actually 3 Extremes 2.
Right. I know, it's weird. Which is the better one.
It was, dude, that was back when we did the 2002 episode, Top 10. Did I watch that? So I don't even remember it.
Right. Yeah, no, Three Extremes is the better anthology, if you want to. It's more shorts. It's not really an anthology. It's a collection of like shorter films, but that one's really damn good. Really fucking good. But yeah, his Short Memories is kind of an interesting one. I think it's about a girl that she ends up in this town, kind of in like this weird city and shit like that, and she doesn't know why she's there. And I think she might have lost her memory of like who she is and stuff. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember it being pretty cool. So yeah, I did A Tale of Two Sisters, The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, which is a totally bizarre film. It's kind of batshit. And then he made his American directorial debut with The Last Stand with Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2013, which I thought was actually really damn fun. Isn't Johnny Knoxville in that movie too? Yeah, Johnny Knoxville's in that movie too. It was kind of, I think it was Schwarzenegger's kind of first comeback starring role film in 2013 after his political career. And Kim Jee-woon, he did that film. It was an American film, so pretty cool. I know he's done other ones like A Bittersweet Life, and I've always wanted to see, what's that one? I think it's, shit, man, he did one, maybe that is, I think A Bittersweet Life is the one about the mob. I think that's something like that, but he's a very interesting South Korean director for sure.
Yeah, I've only seen A Tale of Two Sisters and I Saw the Devil, and I guess his Three Extremes film.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is I could just, dude, it's so weird. I always thought that this film was remade, but it wasn't, was it?
I don't think so. Unless
maybe it was just talked about it. Like I thought it was like a case with Old Boy where it was like an American director like remade it, but I guess it never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there was an official American remake of the. It does seem like something that would be remade for American audiences, though. This is like kind of this Prime type of movie.
Yeah, you would think that like they would have been chopping at the bit to do an Americanized, dumbed down version of this film.
Right, because they really do that a lot with you know, a lot of these type of extreme films, and what they do is they remake them in North America here, and then they're just dumbed down versions of like Inside and Martyrs. Those are probably great examples
Inside, Martyrs, Old Boy, which I never actually watched Old Boy, but
I'm waiting for a remake of a Serbian film to come out, and it's just like rated PG-13.
Dude, I'm actually surprised they never did that.
But you know, but the thing is with the Serbian film, remaking it in America doesn't even make sense because it's a political statement. Because it's a political statement. It's about like, it's kind of funny, right? People are like screaming at me, going, "Fuck you! No, it's not. They're just raping kids for the sake of." No, that's not how it is. But, anyways, I'm not getting on that fucking tune again, man. Because every time we bring up the animal cruelty in Cannibal Holocaust, we always got people yelling at us like left and right, like, "You guys are idiots for believing that shit. Fuck off." Seriously, tired of that conversation.
So I Saw the Devil. I saw the Devil a few times. I think this is actually my fourth watch as well.
Yeah.
Because I watched it for our show, and then I watched it for the I think I was on a guest somewhere, and it was like an underrated thing.
Right.
And then we watched it for Duncan's show, the summer series with the 2010s, and then finally this is the fourth watch. So pretty crazy that it's a 2 hours and 20 minutes ish,
222 223, somewhere in that range. And you know, I mean, we always joke about like, you know, you get the first 90 minutes for free, and then after that, you know, you got to really work for it. But this is one of those movies that the running time doesn't really hurt it at all. It has a pretty good pace. There's always something interesting that's happening, and before you know it, you've watched 150 minutes of, you know, a serial killer / revenge vigilante type film. So,
well, I feel like that the long running time makes it feel more epic. Right. Because of the cat and mouse nature of it. Mm-hmm. It makes it feel like so much happens. Right.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't affect the narrative at all. It's because like he's toying with them, right? I mean, you can play that out in so many different ways. It's always giving you something else to look forward to. Like where is he going to track him? Literally, like he's got a tracker in him. So, but I guess I mean most people watching this have probably seen I Saw the Devil, but I'll give you the short and long synopsis breakdown on IMDb. It's one-liner. A secret agent exacts revenge on a serial killer through a series of captures and releases. I mean, I guess that's pretty accurate. It's very, very brief, but basically what happens in the beginning of the film, our main character here, I'm not even going to try and pronounce names and stuff because they're all, I can't remember, and I just screw them up all the time. But our main character here is, he's actually like a secret agent. That's what he's dubbed as. You know, he works for the government, and his wife basically breaks down. Her car breaks down. Well, actually, didn't break down. She gets a flat tire. And, you know, he's kind of talking to her on the phone and stuff like that. She calls a tow truck. And as she's waiting for the tow truck, the serial killer pulls up. Or this dude pulls up and basically attacks her and kidnaps her and shit like that. Ends up killing her and dismembering her body and stuff like that. And so the secret agent, you know, now he's hell-bent on finding out who the fuck did this and stuff like that. And he pulls up a suspect list pretty quick, and he goes and kind of breaks it down. He's got like 4 top-notch suspects and stuff. And then he goes and fucks with these other guys and figures out, I think by the 3rd try, who actually had done this. So basically, instead of like just finding out who did it and exacting his revenge at a one-time revenge type thing, he beats the fucking shit out of him. I mean, in a vicious fucking brutal beating. Like it just never seems to end in the movie. He's just giving it to him. It's fucking unbelievably violent. Anyways, he has this tracking device that he got from another agent who snuck it out of their government building and stuff. And he fucking shoves it down this guy's throat, and he swallows it to track him. Now he wants to fuck with him. He wants him to go off and do his shit, and he wants to keep tracking him and doing his thing. And it's kind of an interesting way of getting revenge, because like you just don't see things like that very often, man. You know, most people get the revenge right on the spot. You know, they're going to do the deeds, they're going to do the killing right away. But this guy wanted to fuck with him, But yeah. So, anyways, that's, you know, the short and long of it, and that's kind of the setup to it. What are your thoughts on I Saw the Devil once again? I'm pretty sure I know what they are.
Yeah, man. I mean, this movie is like brilliant. You know, it's such an interesting premise, and it takes this revenge aspect and pretty much like puts nitrous oxide in it,
right?
And it just is. It's insane. I think that in the performance, I mean, there's a really, like, I mean, you could start anywhere. The performances are amazing. The cinematography is amazing. The setting and the cat and mouse nature of everything is amazing. The actual like torture of the serial killer is brutal, like the Achilles tendon, and it's just and the lead so high in. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have attempted it. You know, like he's just this badass. Like you just feel like, wow, this guy is just has one track mind, like just to get this revenge and do as much infliction of damage as possible.
Right.
And there's so many good scenes in this, from where the killer there, you know, captures one of the schoolgirls and he takes her to that was it like a greenhouse or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like that whole scene when our hero or our, you know, anti-hero shows up.
Anti-hero.
Yeah, that whole scene is amazing. My favorite scene in the entire film is when the serial killer gets picked up by some people who also are killers.
Yeah.
And
the taxi scene?
The stabbing in the car. I mean, if you took like specific scenes from the decade of the 2010s, that has to be one of the best directed shot scenes ever. And the brutality of it is like Tarantino-esque. You know what I mean?
What I love about that scene, man, is like the killer has words at times, but in this specific scene, he gets picked up. I think these guys actually had just robbed a bank or something like that. They had just done something. Anyways, he ends up in this vehicle with them and stuff, and they're talking and they're chirping and they're saying a bunch of shit, and he's not really reacting, but with words. And then all of a sudden he says a couple things, and it just literally they're driving. They're clipping along, and he just decides he's going to stab the shit out of everybody in the vehicle, and it's fucking brutal. Like this guy has no regard for life or even his own, because at this point, like if you're stabbing the shit out of people, clipping along at a pace, like you're risking your own life dying. Like he just doesn't give a fuck. Like that scene just shows how fucking insane this guy is. He just took on 3 guys, risked his own life at the same point, and it's shot so brilliantly, man. Like how they shot that in that vehicle, like without literally covering the camera lenses in blood, because it's spraying fucking everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's literally
it
everywhere.
looks so good. Like I hate in movies where like there's a brutal stabbing like that and there's barely any blood.
Well,
because dude, people bleed like crazy when some people get a cut and there's like a pile of blood.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, that first stabbing right to the guy's neck where it just starts fucking shooting out. I mean, that makes sense, right? You stab someone in the neck. I mean, that's pulsating. So yeah, the scene is very visceral, man. It's fucking bloody. It's vicious, and it just keeps going on and on. It's like so many stabbings, and oh man. It's fucking brutal. Actually, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is actually a scene that he doesn't even end up killing the dude. It's actually when he goes to the doctor's office and he's kind of getting treated and stuff like that. And he's just like, he's torturing the doctor just with words, right? He's just so brutal to him. Like, and just the way he's looking at him and what he's saying to him and things like that. I'm just like, man, this guy just gives no fuck, man.
Right. The casting of the serial killer was so good because the guy just looks like a sleazebag, like murderer.
Right. But like it is really good, man. He does look the part, but like the way the dialogue is written in the movie, that's a great scene to prove like you don't even have to kill somebody to be super fucking scary. Like you can see how scared that doctor is. He knows this guy's being serious. Like, what? Like, you want to question it, but you don't want to say anything. But like that's how scary this killer is in this movie. Like a lot of people always, you know, they compare this movie to Silence of the Lambs and Seven, which, you know, is comparable. You know, it's got similarities, man. It's about serial killers. It's about somebody going after them. It's just done a little bit differently. But this killer, to me, is insanely fucking freaky. He's so fucking freaky, man. Like, just, you know, John Doe in Seven, like, he has words, but he's not like that. Like, this is just, there's something to say about writing that type of dialogue and acting it like that literally as a viewer you're like, fuck, man, I'd be scared shitless if I was in that doctor's office, right? Like that's really, really powerful on how that was done. But I really like the opening scene though when he attacks her, and he's, you know, I love that scene though, man. He attacks her, drags her out of the vehicle, and he's dragging her body, and it's got this kind of very low key piano score that's playing, and it just sets the tone instantly. Like, you know, this is just going to be brutal. It's just going to be brutal. And then that scene is just like, he takes her back to his kill room. And like one of my most memorable things about this movie, and I probably said this in the other review too, is like the dialogue is so powerful in this. She looks up at him and she's pleading for her life. And she's like, don't kill me, don't kill me. And he's like staring at her and he's like, why? Like, just so cold-hearted. He's like, why? And he's like looking right at her in her eyes, and she's like, don't kill me because I'm pregnant. He doesn't say a fucking word. He looks her right in the eye, grabs his pipe, and fucking bashes in her brains. Doesn't even say a fucking thing. And then the next scene, he's like cutting her in pieces. I'm like, fuck, man. It's got to be one of the most brutal opening scenes. Like, that's like in the first like 8-10 minutes of the movie. It's just nasty. It really sets the tone in how vicious this guy. He has no regard for anything. And, you know, it's kind of funny, too, because you learn things about the serial killer in this film. Like, you know, the first couple of kills that he does, he basically is just killing that isn't for sexual pleasure. But then his character, you learn things about it, though. Like, when he abducts the young girl, that's when he gets a little bit sexually aroused. And it kind of adds an element to this guy where he's killing and dismembering women for the sake of killing and dismembering. It's pure pleasure. Right. But then when it came to the younger, and this is implied that he's also a pedophile too, because like he's taking these high school girls and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's like a fucking bus driver, dude.
Yeah.
How the hell did this guy ever get a bus driving license?
That's a scary scene, and that's a scary scene in itself, because after we see that, like, or we get to see him, you know, after he's killed some women. And then we get to see this guy's like working for this. He's like a bus driver, and he's driving around like kids and shit. Bus driver. Like, that's a scary scene. They're like, oh shit, this guy's driving a fucking bus full of kids. But then we get to learn that like he's sexually attracted to the younger ones. He's killing the older ones, and he's trying to fuck the younger ones. And I'm like, oh, brutal. And they do it so perfectly too, because it's not like pounding it down your throat that he's a pedophile, but that's when he gets sexually aroused is from the younger kids. And I'm like, fuck, dude, it just added an element to this guy that's just ruthless.
I think that the reason why him as a killer also works, and it goes back to like sort of what you were saying about like, it's not all his kills aren't purely sexual. Like that one might have been. there's no real rhyme or reason. It's just he's just an evil person that does whatever he wants in the moment.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he doesn't seem like the type of killer that, like a Ted Bundy who's planning out these assaults, right?
Right.
Like he seems like somebody that just lives for the assaults in the moment, and just he's going to do it whenever he wants and whenever he sees an opportunity.
Well, he does after he leaves that doctor's office after intimidating him with, multiple words and shit like that. Like he takes that, I guess she would be the nurse or whatever in the doctor's office, into that room, into the supply room or whatever. And then she's obviously a little bit older and he is getting aroused. Like, I don't know if it was just like a momentary thing, but that scene has always come across as super haunting because like he's so fucking scary. And I don't think he ever tells her not to scream, because you got to remember, like, they're still in the doctor's office. If she screams in that room, someone's probably going to hear, right? And probably come and, investigate what the fuck's going on. But she's so terrified by his intimidation, by his look, his words, she doesn't scream. But he is about to rape her before our anti-hero actually, comes and ruins that, because, he's still got the tracking device in him and shit. And that's another fucking brutal ass scene where he breaks in and just pulverizes him. And then that's also when the Achilles tendon cutting is just, there's something about Achilles tendon cutting that is just, it makes me fucking just like,
I think it's everybody. I think it's just one of those things that everybody knows, that the feeling of that little tendon on the back of your ankle, and like how brutal that would be. Like, because every film I've ever seen Achilles slicing in, whether it's Pet Sematary or Hostel or this, it always has the same effect on me. This is a nasty one though. And then he tells the nurse to like patch him back up and shit. And it's just like,
because he wants him mobile again. He wants him out there, and like, the whole storyline, like when you talk about what he's doing, it really does make a lot of sense. But in the long run, like, it did work against him a little bit, because there was other victims along the way. Like, if he had just exacted his revenge right from the start, he probably would have saved some lives. I mean, you can always look at it like that too, right? Like, he's playing games with other people's lives. You have to remember this, because he wants him mobile, but then he's doing all this bad shit to other people at the same time. So hence the anti-hero kind of thing. But
I think it also is the theme of the movie on revenge in general, and how it's can end up damaging you in the long run. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the moral of the story, though. That's the moral of the story. Like, people always want to exact revenge when something shitty's happened to you or someone that you love or something like that. But are you willing to turn into the devil that created that whole situation? Like, this is what happened to our secret agent, man. Like, he was a normal dude that was basically turned almost as vicious as our serial killer because of what happened to him. It's kind of the moral of the story. Like, you have to be able to contain your emotions in real life, because you just became almost, because he's even being told by his father-in-law, stop this shit. You got to stop this, man. Like, this is not good. Other people are getting hurt, and you've basically lost touch with reality, in the sense that you want to do what you want to accomplish with this serial killer, but you're forgetting there's other people involved. And then look what happens. Like, literally look what happens to the father-in-law, and like other people's lives are wrecked and damaged and lost because of his aggressive behavior. Really, it's just it's out of control, and it's a good it's a good character study on good and evil, and how good can turn evil.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a classic case of somebody getting so caught up in revenge and in the pursuit, and making someone else suffer even as slightly close as you feel like you're suffering. Right. And it basically, destroys everything around you in the process, what I mean? And yourself. But to go back to the beginning where you were talking about that opening scene too, like, there's something interesting, and I see this a lot in specifically Asian cinema, especially like the South Korean stuff, and the these sort of almost like thriller type of violent, but they're like more violent than thriller type movies. Like, there is always this mixture of like this extreme violence but there's this juxtaposition of the beauty of it, the cinematography, like that opening scene where it's the overhead shot of the dragging and stuff, and it's just like it gives such mixed emotions because on one hand it looks so beautiful what you're looking at, but what you're looking at is horrific. So it always that's why I love, and it seems like it happens in all cinema, but it's something that I consistently noticed in South Korean cinema is their ability to make these beautiful looking movies, like even with the snow falling and stuff,
right.
and these extremely violent, horrific events. Like that's why I love South Korean cinema. Yeah,
they really do a good job, man. I mean, you know, when you kind of compare it to Silence of the Lambs, like these are not lowbrow type films, right? They really do focus on the characters and the cinematography and the scores. And the scores are a big thing, man. That music playing at the beginning is just dreadfully morbid because like what you're seeing in is like this little piano sound and you're just like, oh my God. Like, I mean, to me, this is the really, really great version of Silence of the Lambs. You know, not to take anything away from Silence of the Lambs. Like, I think it's a good movie, but this one right here, I could watch way more often than Silence of the Lambs. There's something about that movie that, like, I mean, it's a really great film, but I think this movie is better on all accounts. I think it's shot better. I think the music is better. I think the violence works so well, and it never holds back. It really doesn't hold back. And I think the ending to this movie is perfect too. I mean, he punishes not only the serial killer, but like, you know, he had disowned the family and stuff. And then that was the last glimpse of that they get of him, you know, like what he did to the family too is so terrifying. Like that was some evil fucking, you didn't have to do that, but he did. Right. And it's really, really crazy. Like how you break that down for our main character. And, I think that was beautiful. I think it's very beautiful. It's very, there's a lot of emotion going on there. You know, like you don't want the poor kid to see that shit and the mom, but at the same time, it's like, there's no fucks given at this point at all. It's good suspense. It's really, really good suspense. I think it's awesome. It really is. Like that decapitation is fucking brutal. It's really good. It's really good, man. I always thought in this movie was really interesting where they came up with the idea of having our main serial killer end up at that other serial killer's house, who is actually a cannibal. He's actually a cannibal. Yeah. And this guy's he's off his fucking rocker. They're kind of implying that this guy's literally lost his mind from eating human flesh. Like he's uncontrollably laughing at situations where he shouldn't be laughing. And he's saying weird things to our serial killer that, you probably wouldn't be fucking saying and stuff like that. And like, there's a moment of like this odd kind of like clarity with our serial killer. And he's kind of like questioning this dude's integrity from eating human flesh. Right. It's kind of an odd dialogue in there that like, what are you doing, bro? Like it's evil versus evil, but he's like, bro, like you're disgusting. He's basically telling me you're a fucking idiot for eating humans and shit. He's like, this is disgusting. Right. It's such a crazy interaction to have between these two characters that are just despicable human beings in general. I really wish that guy's demise was like, I love that scene where he's in the hospital bed and he grabs his jaw and he's breaking. I always envisioned like it would have been so stupid if this would have happened, but like say he breaks off the bottom of his jaw and just stabs him in the face with it. But like you can see the anger in him. He's literally breaking his jaw apart and he's wrecking his face, but we don't know if he dies or not. It's kind of debatable, right? He never does actually kill that guy, which he probably should have, because, he was very despicable, but, that would have been probably a little bit over the top. I mean, how many people get stabbed with their own jawbone? But, whatever. But that's a vicious scene, man. But like when you actually kind of break down the viciousness of the film, man, our lead here, man, he's just as brutal as our serial killer, man. I mean, obviously the intentions are different. He's still got morals. Like, he's still got, he's not a fucking complete psychopath. But
even the scene in the house where he steps on the fish hooks and then he runs at him and he misses the shotgun shot and then he beats the shit out of him with a pipe forever. Yeah. It's fucking brutal, man. It's so brutal. There's a lot of long beatings in this movie. Just a lot of long beatings. Yeah. It's interesting too because like,
the movie runs 2.5 hours pretty much, and the kill count overall in the movie, including our serial killer, like there's really only like 8 kills in the entire movie, but it seems like there's a lot more because of how vivid.
The fact that he's beat to near death over and over again.
Right, because we get a lot of other violence, and we get a lot of other kind of tragic scenes. Like I even incorporate, the scene where he's intimidating the doctor and stuff, and then the girl that he tries to rape and kill. Like there's a lot of shit where people actually don't end up dying, but there's scene after scene after scene of just evilness in this movie. It's just crazy, man. It's kind of nonstop. I think the pacing in this movie is fantastic, man. It really never allows you to, to sit there and, hit your time button on your remote. You know what I'm saying? You ever watch longer movies and you're like, fuck, there's like 30 minutes left. Are you serious? This one just kind of like it clips along. It clips along so well. There's so much going on, and you're really just anticipating what is going to happen next, because it could go anywhere. Like it literally sets it up for anything, because the movie gets big. You think a lot of these type of movies they keep it more low key. This one is it's got a huge range of geographical areas where they are. And I love that about the film, man. It moves around and stuff, and it's pretty nasty. So, it's just a really, really great movie, man. It's funny when I hear people have never seen this movie before. It's just absolutely crazy. I know there is a lot of people out there that kind of stay away from these films that aren't dubbed. They don't want to read them. But to be honest,
there is a dubbed version on here, but I don't recommend it.
Oh, is there really? Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
But you know what, man? Like this type of movie doesn't have drama type dialogue. You know what I mean? Like line after line after line after line, where you're reading and reading and reading, and you're actually missing things because you're trying to keep up with the dialogue. It's not like that. Everything's so impactful. Like there is a way to read subtitles so you can like look in the middle and just read the whole thing at once. That's what I do. I can process the whole thing. But at the same time, it's not an abundance of dialogue. It's pretty easy to follow. And so the storyline is pretty straight lined,
Yeah. It's just really fucking cool.
It's just crazy.
How often I've never seen somebody track a serial killer with a GPS tracking device and beat the shit out of them to near death and then let them go and do the same thing again. I mean, even on paper that sounds amazing, right? Like if someone just told you, "Hey, I got this idea for a film," right? Like this serial killer kills this dude's pregnant wife. He's all pissed off. He's an agent. Gets a tracking device. Beats the shit out of the dude. Makes him swallow it, and then keeps following him and doing the same shit over and over again. Yeah, torturing this guy. Really cool idea, man.
It is. It really kind of makes you get into the mindset of our main character here. He's like, no fucks are given. Right. There's no you want to play games with other people's lives and shit. I'm going to do that with yours, and take it to that extreme level and kind of do that is nuts. There's only 2 scenes in this film that I always thought were, one of them is very convenient. One is just kind of like over the top, but actually rewatching that scene, it was one of the reasons I think where I ended up giving it like a half point off was the scene in the intersection where he fucking knocks off the door and then pulls that like straight out James Bond shit where he like fucking he rolls up and then
it feels a little much.
It does. It seems almost a little out of place too, because it almost seems a little bit more actiony and stuff. I'm not saying there's it's not like a horrible scene. I just think it's a little bit out of place in the movie. It just seems like we kind of turned into like an action film at that time, but
right.
Upon rewatching, it's pretty hilarious actually that he takes the time to reverse the shit, knock the door off. I'm like, I'm going to do this, and then he does. But the one scene that I thought it was always a little bit convenient, and I'm glad that they didn't draw this out though too, because he basically in the beginning of the film compiles a list where he kind of got, I think, from the father-in-law too, or was it his boss? I can't remember exactly where he gets the list of prime suspects. But anyways, he compiles 4. And of course, one of the 4 suspects actually is the one that he's looking for. So I'm glad that they didn't really draw that out where it was like this whole thing. You're playing around and it's, 45 minutes later, we finally get to, where he's, found the right guy.
I mean, it is a little convenient that they even had him as a suspect so easily.
I know.
What I mean, they don't really go into like how they did that.
Right. That's the only thing I don't, because the serial killer even says, he's like, oh, he's like, fucking cops found me already. Like, it didn't seem like he was doing this a long time. Even if he was doing it for like a year or something like that, like still not a long time. Like when you're a serial killer, sometimes it takes forever to find out who these people are, kind of thing. But they had these suspects, and I think he'd obviously been arrested for previous crimes related to something along these lines or something like that. I think that's how the list was compiled. But the scene I'm talking about is when he finally gets, which is the third suspect on his list, and he goes to the house, which I will say, man, the killer's house is very serial killy ish. It just looks like you walk into that place, you're like, there's something seriously fucking wrong with this house. Like, there's no gyprock, and all the insulation is just like bagged up and stuff, and it's just creepy as hell. And then there's, of course, his room is all neat and tidy, and then he's got this kind of dresser type box thing, and there's individual locks on each thing. It's just very suspect. Right. So anyways, he goes in there and he rips that shit apart and he finds all this stuff, and then he realizes this is probably the dude. So he goes through this one kind of door kind of area, and it's the kill room. So when he walks in, he sees the
wedding ring,
which is in the water grill that's leading out into the drainage from the room. And he reaches in and he sees the ring. And I always, it doesn't matter how many times I watch this movie, I'm like, the probability of finding that ring is like seriously so fucking low. But I mean, because it is in the drain and he sees it right away. And I'm always like, oh man, it's so convenient. And you know, it's always been one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is convenience like that. Because let's face it, it's a ring in a drain. There's probably tons of shit in there. The fact he just reaches in and goes, holy shit, that's a ring. I'm like, okay. Right.
I mean, I the only one like explanation that like sort of helps it, it's not like me or you going in there. It's somebody who is an investigator and like
trained to do that.
Trained investigators. So maybe he has a little bit more intuition than we do. But I get what you're saying.
You know what? I watch a lot of fucking true crime, Dateline and shit, man. I'm trained too. Give me a job. Give me a job. But no, it is funny because he doesn't even really have to go into the room. It's literally the first thing that he sees, right? The grill is right beyond that kind of area, the walkthrough area. So
right,
it's very quickly done, but it is what it is, man. I mean, once he tracks him, man. Oh, dude, this movie, it's such an insane idea. Absolutely love it. Yeah, it's violent as shit, man. Just violence.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good quotes on here. A masterpiece of its own genre you won't soon forget. New York Post. This is filmmaking on a whole new level, a masterpiece from Chud.com.
You know, I always get so confused with the South Korean names. Like, half the time you read the names and it's like Jee-woon Kim, and then you look on here, it's like Kim Jee-woon. I'm like, which fucking way is the name?
It's something to do with their surname and like how they put it in front or something like that.
Right.
There's something, I remember looking it up before, but they do something with their like it works both ways, but one is their last name, but sometimes it's in front.
Right. So it says in the trivia here, director Jee-woon Kim revealed how some Indian producers were interested in the film's remake rights. Since the agreement failed at the negotiation table, he laughed. They made it anyways. Okay.
There's a Bollywood I Saw the Devil up there.
So you definitely know that there's going to be some song and dance scenes in there because you know they just have to like in McCallahall or whatever. Oh my god, dude! Like that movie is hilarious because it's so Indian Bollywood for them to just throw in these random song and dance sequences because that's a lot of Indian films are like that. It's a very common thing, right? But they're so out of place in that one. It's kind of funny. That movie, I would love to re-edit. I would take out all that shit.
Dude, I said the same thing. If you actually took out all the like cheesy singing and dancing and dumb shit and you made it like an hour and a half, like that would actually be a pretty solid Freddy movie. There's some good stuff in there.
No, there
like,
is.
All the Freddy gloves coming out like Day of the Dead and shit.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool.
Like the whole third act is pretty decent. I mean, and you got that one kind of goofy character he's the comic relief, but you know,
the Michael Jackson dude.
Yeah, the Michael Jackson dude, the straight comic relief. But you could probably cut down a couple of his scenes that go on a little bit too long. But otherwise, man, it has good scenes throughout the film. It's like the textbook definition of a movie that needs a re-edit. Like it needs a edit, not a re-edit, like a re.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's crazy. But it's fucked, man. It's like 150 minutes too. It's like the same length as this one, and you're like, oh man. I fast forward through the song and dance shit because it doesn't even make any sense. It literally makes no sense to the movie.
Right. Yeah.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. And it's not really the case with a lot of Indian movies too, because they have those sequences in those films and they completely make sense in the narrative. But I don't know how you could ever make them make sense in a narrative like that. It doesn't make any sense, right? It's just why would you ever even bother to do that? It's so weird. Oh man. So this is actually the reason why Arnold Schwarzenegger ended up doing the film with him, was because of this film.
I Saw the Devil.
Yeah, and he loved it so much. And then when he found out that he wanted to do an American film, he jumped on board, did The Last Stand. So that's kind of cool thing. But I mean, good on Schwarzenegger for actually watching I Saw the Devil.
Right? Yeah.
You know, it always kind of blows my mind, some of these guys that watch these movies. You just think they're us watching them. You know, but these guys watch movies too, and it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I Saw the Devil, man. This is one of those movies that just never. It's great for a watch every couple years. Like, I had no beefs, or I wasn't moaning and groaning about rewatching this one, even though we just did a couple years ago. And I'm like, generally when it comes to like a 2-hour plus movie, I'm like, you know what, bro, I'm usually prepping for something. I could be watching like a couple other things at the same time. But this one, it's not one of those movies that I'm belly aching over. You know, it's just so, like, once you get, like, the first 5 minutes sucks you right in to the point where you're like, oh man, how could you not love this? It's so good. Right. It's so good on all technical aspects, man. Like, again, South Korean films, man, I don't know what it is. There's just so many incredible movies. It's got to be one of the most underrated areas in the world for cinema. It really is.
Yeah.
So, you got anything else on I Saw the Devil?
I think I'm good.
Right. Yeah, I said everything I got to say. So, what's your rating on? I actually don't remember what you gave it. I know I gave it a 9.5. I'm positive I gave it 9.5 because I remember being like, oh, I'm gonna dock it for that shit.
Yeah, I gave it a 9.5. Back then, I still am sticking to the 9.5.
Yeah, I'm still at 9.5 out of 10 too. You know, it can still be a masterpiece because that word is just so widely used now.
Yeah,
but it is a really, really fantastic movie, man. Highly recommend everyone check this out. If you've never seen I Saw the Devil, you need to change that. Hopefully this review didn't spoil too much if you haven't seen it. And I mean, it kind of talks about a lot of individual scenes and stuff, even the ending. But either or, it's not like watching it. It's definitely an experience in itself. So you need to check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you never have. This challenge here is like the perfect excuse to actually give it a watch.
Right. Yeah, from what I've been hearing, there's people that have checked out the list and stuff. And you know, I want to thank you guys actually for jumping on board and trying out the challenge with us. I know some other people that have been jumping on, messaging me, and I've been getting tagged in things that have been doing the challenge too and stuff like that. So that's fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely leave your comments on this week's film below. I love reading to hear what people thought of the stuff.
Right. Yeah. So if you've seen it or wanting to see it, yeah, definitely leave us a comment. Make sure to like the video. The algorithm is killing everything right now. And leave comment. Comments and likes are as simple as just doing it. It's very simple, but it actually does help out. And I usually never say this in videos.
Especially with people's channels like Moodz's where they focus on stuff that YouTube doesn't like to promote. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like horror and things like that. So yeah, definitely liking the video, commenting helps tremendously. It shows up. It'll help the video show up in the sidebar whenever they're watching something related. Mm-hmm. So definitely help us out.
Yeah, shout goes out to Blu-ray Lantern. I know he was the latest one that, off the top of my head, that said that he was joining in on the 200 challenge. So big ups to him. But yeah, so it's gonna be fun. Oh shit, Jesus! I was gonna say
the next film.
I was gonna say, man, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And you know what? I didn't even have it ready to go because I'm a dumbass. So we'll just keep talking here. But
I Saw the Devil. Definitely. I mean, one of the best films on this list. There's not a ton of foreign flicks on this list, surprisingly. But this is definitely one that I'm happy was on there. Like Mood said, I watched this film 4 times in the last couple years, as did he, and I didn't drag my feet about watching it. You know what I mean?
No,
And
no.
that's a 2.5 hour film. Normally, if I just watch a 2.5 hour film and you tell me I got to watch it again within a year or whatever, I'm gonna be like, fuck. But
Right.
not this time.
Right, right. Okay, so we're going to throw the rest of the movies in there. I'm pretty sure that I took that out. Yes, I definitely did because I have it listed, so that's good. Make sure to...
Okay, 195 flicks.
195 flicks and hitting the randomizer right now. And we have Captain Chronos Vampire Hunter. So that is
I don't even know what that is.
That's a Hammer film.
Oh, okay.
That's a Hammer. Captain Chronos, what year did it come out in? Late 60s, I want to say? Or is it? Or no, it's 74. Yeah, that's the one. 1974. Captain Chronos, Vampire Hunter. So that's obviously a first-time watch for you. Scream Factory put out this Blu-ray, actually. So it does have a good transfer. I did not watch my copy since I picked it up. It came out a couple years back, I think, because they've been on this Hammer kick, man, which is pretty cool that all these movies are getting pretty decent releases here in Region 1. So a Master Swordsman.
Have you seen this film before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a minute, though. It's definitely been a minute. And so we're on to another vampire movie, because that is actually... What have we done so far? The Loved Ones, Psycho 2, Vampires, The Lair of the White Worm, and I Saw Death. Okay. Cool.
All right.
Right on. So that's going to be the next one. Back to the 70s. And we will check you guys in episode 6. And as usual,
Peace.
deuces.